Hello and welcome to the news. To present, my name is Jeffrey Ziambo. Top stories in the news: President Edgar Lungu has reshuffled cabinet, replacing Finance Minister Felix Mutati with Margaret Mwanakatwe as the new Finance Minister. Home Affairs Minister Stephen Kampiongo says Zambians are mature enough to handle the outcome of the ruling on President Edgar Lungu's eligibility to contest the 2021 presidential election. University of Zambia lecturers and researchers have called on government to reopen the institution without further delay. The news in detail. President Edgar Lungu has elevated Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry Margaret Mwanakatwe to the post of Minister of Finance, taking over from Felix Mutati, who has been moved to the Ministry of Works and Supply in the same capacity. President Lungu has appointed Patriotic Front Parliamentary Chief Whip Richard Musukwa as the new Minister of Mines and Minerals Development, taking over from Christopher Yaluma, who becomes the Minister of Commerce, Trade and Industry. The PF Deputy Chief Whip Stephen Chungu becomes the Chief Whip, while Remember Chanda Mutale is the new Deputy Chief Whip. And the President has terminated the appointment of Minister of Water Development, Sanitation and Environmental Protection Lloyd Mulenga Kazia and replaced him with the Minister of General Education Dr. Dennis Wanchinga. The Minister of Energy, David Mabumba, has been moved to the Ministry of General Education in the same capacity. The Minister of Works and Supply, Matthew Nkoa, moves to Ministry of Energy in the same capacity. And the Minister of Agriculture, Dora Selia, has been transferred to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Services, taking over from Kampamba Mulenga, who becomes Minister of Fisheries and Livestock, replacing Michael Katambo, who is the new Minister of Agriculture. The head of state has further swapped Copperbelt Province Minister Bowman Lusambo with his Lusaka Province counterpart Jafen Mwakalombe, whilst Western Province Minister Nathaniel Mubukwanu swaps with Northwestern Province Minister Richard Kapita. This is contained in a statement made available by Special Assistant to the President for Press and Public Relations, Amos Chanda. Home Affairs Minister Stephen Kampiongo says Zambians are mature enough to handle the outcome of the Constitutional Court's ruling on President Edgar Lungu's eligibility to stand in 2021. The Economist Intelligence Unit has predicted that serious unrest is likely to break out in Zambia when the Constitutional Court delivers a verdict on whether President Lungu is eligible to stand for another term in office in the 2021 general election. But Mr. Kampiongo says Zambians are mature enough to respect the decision of the courts, contrary to the statement coming from the EIU. He says Zambia has evolved with the nation, managing to handle certain difficult circumstances than the ruling on President Lungu's eligibility to stand in 2021. He points out that after the 2016 disputed elections, the people remained calm during periods of the presidential petition and that nothing can stop them from handling the outcome of the court ruling. Mr. Kampiongo says the people of Zambia are mature enough to respect the court's ruling regardless of which way it goes.
What we can't even understand, first of all, what the basis is for them to predict that way. This country has evolved. We have managed situations that could have been potential conflict situations. A president is declared winner and he accepts to wait for the court's decision. That's how much mature we are as Zambians. And so those who are anticipating that there could be confusion, they're just the prophets of doom. So we as a nation are mature enough. We have gone through periods. We have lost presidents before, and we have managed the transitions when in other countries it could have been chaos.
The University of Zambia Lecturers and Researchers Union, Unzalaru, has called on the government to reopen the university as soon as possible. Unzalaru President Dr. Evans Lampi says the continued closure of the institution has adverse effects on the career development of both students and staff and will greatly undermine the international reputation and ranking of the oldest and most prestigious institution of higher learning in the country. Dr. Lampi is calling on President Edgar Lungu to show leadership by taking personal interest in this matter, given that he is an alumni of UNZA. Dr. Lampi says the union would not be surprised if the government would discover or invent another excuse to prolong the closure of the institution this month end or even before it. The UNZA president has also expressed concern over the deteriorating physical infrastructure at UNZA, saying it shows that there is lack of regular and effective maintenance of the institution's structures. The Zambia Revenue Authority ZRA has given all landlords and tenants who are not registered for paying withholding tax on rental income up to the 1st of March 2018 to register. Section 45 of the Income Tax Act, Chapter 323 of the Laws of Zambia requires every person within 30 days from first receiving taxable income to give written notice of the Commissioner General of the Zambia Revenue Authority. Briefing journalists in Lusaka, ZRA Acting Commissioner General Bridget Muyenga says in exercise of the Commissioner General's powers under the Income Tax Act, all landlords and tenants are being urged to register between today and the 1st of March. Ms. Muyenga says ZRA will, effective the 2nd of March 2018, commence physical surveys of real estate properties throughout the country in collaboration with various stakeholders, and that those found wanting will face the sanctions and prescribed by the Income Tax Act, Chapter 323 of the Laws of Zambia. She explains that income from letting of property is liable to withholding tax at the rate of 10% of gross rentals.
Section 45 of the Income Tax Act, Chapter 323 of the Laws of Zambia requires every person within 30 days from first receiving taxable income to give written notice to the Commissioner General of the Zambia Revenue Authority. Income from letting of property is liable to withholding tax at the rate of 10% of gross rentals. The law further requires that the tenant to be registered for withholding tax for purposes of accounting for withholding tax. Although it is a primary responsibility of the tenant to withhold tax and remit to the ZRA, landlords may apply to the Commissioner General for approval to receive gross rentals and account for tax under their own income tax account, subject to the conditions that the Commissioner General may prescribe. The rate of tax applicable in this case remains 10%, and tax is payable by the 14th day of the following month.
Speaking at the same briefing, ZRA Commissioner of Domestic Taxes Moses Shuko says it is against the law to refuse to facilitate registration, as this amounts to tax evasion.
But the withholding tax, the tenant should only withhold 10, which is 10%. And that 10% is on the gross rentals, not in addition to the VAT. So you don't touch the VAT as a tenant. All you do is to account for the 10%, which is applied on the gross rentals, and leave the VAT, because the landlord himself will account for the VAT. And that is on properties that may be deemed as commercial properties. So that is one clarification I thought I should make. But then also, we've also received concerns that there are landlords who do not want to offer their tenants the tip-ins, the estate to register. Because for you to account for withholding, you need both the tip-in of the landlord and the tip-in of the tenant. So for those ones, if any client faces, any tenant faces those kind of situations, they are encouraged to report to the Zambia Revenue Authority and will follow, because this is law and people must apply the requirement of the law. So anyone who is trying to refuse to facilitate the registration is basically evading tax. So those must be reported, and as Acting Commissioner General has indicated, we are now in the post-amnesty period, so the enforcement will take.
The Rural Electrification Authority, REA, has handed over 5 grid extension projects valued at 32.7 million kwacha to ZESCO Limited for the power utility to maintain and operate them. The grid extension projects undertaken between 2014 and 2015 are Mushindamo Phase 2 and 3 in Solwezi District in Northwestern Province at a cost of 16.34 million kwacha, Mundu Phase 2 in Chinsali District in Muchinga Province at a cost of 5.6 million kwacha, Mulungushi Agro in Kabwe District in Central Province at 5.5 million kwacha, and the Mwinuna Phase 2 in Mpongo District on the Copperbelt Province at 5.25 million kwacha. REA Chief Executive Officer Jeffrey Musonda says the authority has constructed over 160 grid extension projects, most of which have already been handed over to ZESCO Limited as stipulated by Rural Electrification Act number 20 of 2003. Speaking during the handover of the projects, Mr. Musonda says the colossal amounts of money spent on these projects are a demonstration of government's commitment and determination to provide reliable energy sources for all the people in rural areas. And Mr. Msonda has disclosed that government has increased the budgetary allocation to the authority from 114 million kwacha last year to 251 million kwacha in 2018.
So this is truly a very clear commitment. They've just not been talking, but they are doing, for as far as we are concerned. And we also want to promise that with the increased resources, there shall be increased visibility in terms of RIA projects out there in the field. And also, I think the partnership that we have seen between the Rural Electrification Authority and ZESCO concerning the 7,000 kilometers of grid lines that we intend to roll out is a very, very good partnership. It's a very, very effective way also of delivering electricity to the rural communities. And we believe in the next 5 years, the landscape in terms of grid distribution in this country will be totally different. I think there will be more visibility, there will be more power distributed to these communities, rural communities shall open up, and we shall see genuine and reasonable development in these areas. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I take this opportunity to urge communities in all the areas where these projects have been left. We know that in some areas, unfortunately, people have taken it upon themselves to continue to vandalize infrastructure which is being put in those areas. As you have heard, we are talking about millions, and this money comes from taxpayers' money. So our plea as an institution is that people would take these assets as theirs because it's their money that is being used, but also be responsible citizens so that they watch over this.
And ZESCO Managing Director Victor Mundende has revealed that the power utility has so far connected over 120,000 households and small-medium enterprises under the subsidy scheme, where customers contribute as low as 150 kwacha for their connections. Mr. Mundende says ZESCO is also partnering in the implementation of the Eastern Southern Africa ESA project, which will see a further 24,000 customers, both household and SMEs, in the rural areas being connected to electricity. He has pledged to ensure that the handed over projects are looked after properly.
At times, poor quality of works by contractors, those that we outsource, have laid down both the REA and ZESCO, causing delays due to technical hiccups. 4, we have therefore noted the importance of ZESCO and REA working closely from project design through to project implementation to effectively manage such projects. This can only benefit both institutions, government and the people of Zambia, who are the effective owners of the infrastructure that we are putting in place. Ladies and gentlemen, following the lapse of the defect liability period for these projects, the REA is now transferring these assets to ZESCO Limited as at 14 February 2018, which is Valentine's Day. They chose a good day. So we're having, as ZESCO, a good Valentine.
The National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia, NUPEZ, is hopeful that the launched Code of Ethics for Teachers will reduce the negative headlines teachers have made in the recent past. NUPEZ National Secretary Nelson Mwale tells Q News that with the launch of the Code of Ethics, 2018 will be different when it comes to teachers' behaviors and attitudes. Meanwhile, Mr. Mwale has echoed Higher Education Minister Dennis Wanchinga's call to depoliticize the teaching service in the country. He says it is high time teachers concentrated on teaching and left politics to politicians. Mr. Mwale says teachers have no choice but to work with the government of the day.
We are so grateful that finally the Code of Ethics for the conduct of our teachers has been developed and launched. We are so grateful. All we want is to reduce on the negative headlines that have been attributed to our teachers on many occasions. And so we are saying 2018 will be a very different situation. Now, a call to depoliticize the teaching service has been repeated again by the Honorable Minister of General Education. I think it's indeed high time that we depoliticized and concentrate on our work. There are a lot of politics out there. Remember, we have no choice but to work with the government all the day. And so the active involvement of a number of our teachers in politics is a regrettable situation. All we need to do is to specifically work with the government all the day.
Patriotic Front Secretary General Davis Mwela says President Edgar Lungu's countrywide inspection of developmental projects should not be misconstrued for campaigning. Mr. Mwela says President Lungu's countrywide tours should therefore not bother anyone. Meanwhile, Mr. Mwela has emphasized that the ruling party will continue accommodating new members. Speaking when he received 600 defectors from the Forum for Democracy and Development, FDD, from Munali constituency, Mr. Mwela urged all PF members to embrace the new members.
To see for himself on what is happening on the ground. Awabalela ndati wa president na bamba campaign chibakali pefie. Where are we campaigning? The president has a duty to see what is happening in the districts in terms of development, the challenges that our people are facing. So colleagues, if we mwilabo mfabalia, ulosha taba mucheba kukanua, umutungana kwa techiri walelila, mwana wanga wana, awe, iwa kulole shafe kumbi, uliali nechilio. So nibada ba HH na ba UPND, badi mfilamba, ero kabili ba NDC, ndeba cha challenge wa chimba kambwili, beba fyo kuina, ama election ya leisa. Watch the participate. Let him participate. We are going to have about 5 local government by-elections in Northwestern. We are going to have 2 on the Copper Belt. And we are going to have 1 in Nampundwe. We are going to have 3 in Eastern Province. So let him participate. Let him not chicken out. We have challenged him before. Challenge over the issue of corruption, that can you provide evidence, which he has failed.
Speaking at the same event, PF Deputy Secretary General Mumbi Piri called for unity within the party. Mrs. Piri has further encouraged women to take an active role in the party.
Nakubanga mulei bukisha bakateka ba etika chakwa lungu ichobadi shibati fofwebana mayo tatwendo mungulu bali tulaya ukwebati in his lifetime there is going to be a woman president in the Republic of Zambia. He has said it in his time. We all had at Heroes Stadium. So if we irae shokwendo mungulu waini lelo ni Valentine's Day tuikatilile chibani lekeni bandu mesu balendo mungulu nga babwela twababweshai nakuba ndala ndedi ngiukwe batalo bufi ulina mendo ya fupi ine ninachoka ku Western Province na bamai bailonge wina over the weekend. Ala ubufita bukula mushi mwari umfwira balebepa iyo petition iri mukoti iyo pa 20 shani balaba bikaponga bakateka unona tufika ni 2018 temu February muno ushabali babika popali bukateka ala abantu naba basula fyonde mieba tebufi ola ifota tuchita transport abantu ati defectors baishila fyabene. Western Province we received over 1,700 defectors head county.
And PF Deputy Media Director Antonio Mwanza has disclosed that more people from his former party, the FDD, will continue joining the PF.
Uliawa petition guys aufwa.
Honorable SG, Honorable Deputy Secretary General, Provincial Chair, Deputy, the MCC, Director, Media, na wose tili pano inaweza kamba chinyanja because nchokera mkombole. Bantu babwera pano ni ma constituency leaders. Constituency committee yose ya FDD for Munali constituency kwa menchokera makalinga. Na wose ma ward committees ba mu FDD from all the 5 wards in Munali balipado. Then Kanyama, the entire Kanyama constituency na ma leaders baku Kanyama mawadzi balipano from FDD.
The Constitutional Court has thrown out a petition in which a new Labour Party President Fresha Siwale had sought the interpretation of the court on the legality of the 11th August 2016 referendum, which was held alongside the 2016 general election. Mr. Siwale filed the petition on the 8th of August 2016, seeking the court's determination whether the 2016 referendum meant to alter Article 79 of the Constitution could in fact be held without a bill to be voted on as required by Article 79, Cap 3 of the Constitution. He also wanted to know whether the holding of the 2016 national referendum meant to alter Part 3 and Article 79 of the Constitution of Zambia had complied with the provisions of the Constitution. Mr. Siwale further sought interpretation whether the provisions of the Referendum Act, the regulations thereto, and the Electoral Process Act as subsidiary legislation were complied with in holding the 2016 national referendum. And delivering judgment in the matter today, Master of the Constitutional Court, Judge Mebo Mwaba, said the net result of the matter interpreted under Article 79, Cap 3 of the Constitution reveals that the provisions of the Constitution were complied with in holding the national referendum to the extent that the proposed bill was put to the people. Judge Mwaba says despite irregularities in the use of the referendum regulations 2016, they did not negatively affect the outcome of the referendum. She has further ruled that all parties involved in the matter will bear their own costs. Patriotic Front Kanyama Member of Parliament Elizabeth Perry has threatened to take legal action against PF Ron Member of Parliament Chimbaka Mbwili for defamation over his accusation that she is collecting money from minibus drivers in her constituency. Ms. Perry has since given Mr. Kambwili a 3-day ultimatum to publicly withdraw his defamatory statement or prove his allegations in court. She says in their natural and ordinary meaning, Mr. Kambwili's remarks meant and were understood to mean that she is a corrupt, dishonest, greedy and grasping individual who is complicit in grabbing resources belonging to the people. Ms. Perry says the statement has injured her character and reputation and that as a result of it allegedly being a false and libelous statement, she is regarded with contempt. Mr. Kambwili accused the Kanyama Member of Parliament of collecting 100,000 kwacha from the drivers in her constituency.
And I even said, do not give me the money. Do not bring your resources to my office. You can engage the contractor yourselves. You can also do it, publicly. I can bring in journalists as you are commissioning the works. You do it. I'm challenging whoever has evidence against me to bring it in open. And whoever saw me collecting or where I signed, if I did not sign, the dates and the days that I have been to the drivers to collect money. Mr. Kambwili, I urge you to apologize openly in all the medias, print and, you have to come to all the TV stations and the print medias to apologize, or I'm ready to spend on a lawyer to vindicate myself, to clear my name. And all your informers, I'll meet them in court because I've been quiet. I took you as a brother and I didn't want to fight you. I didn't want to be insulting you. Now you have dragged me in the net where you have to multiply your enemies. Really, if you were a genuine person, you would have consulted You would have informed me. You would have told me that what you were given. And I would have cleared myself. Even your source would have been brought. Because I'm ready to go down to the source of your information. And whoever is the source, I think now I'll get money from you people that are talking about it than from the drivers. Because now I'll need the compensation for deformation of character.
In the news, we take a look at stories making headlines. President Edgar Lungu has reshuffled cabinet, replacing Finance Minister Felix Mutati with Margaret Mwanakatwe as the new Finance Minister. Home Affairs Minister Stephen Kampiongo says Zambians are mature enough to handle the outcome of the ruling on President Edgar Lungu's eligibility to contest the 2021 presidential election. And the University of Zambia lecturers and researchers have called on government to reopen the institution without further delay. That's all we had in our news. My name is Jeffrey Ziambo. Bye-bye.